And to more sad news, South African police have launched a major investigation into the killing of South African football captain Senzo Meyiwa. They are offering a reward of 250,000 rand for information leading to the capture of the suspected burglar who shot him dead. Meyiwa was reportedly attacked after men entered his girlfriend's house. President Jacob Zuma led tributes to the goalkeeper, saying words cannot express the nation's shock at the loss of this goalkeeper. Meanwhile, tributes have been pouring in for slain former goalkeeper and captain Senzo Meyiwa at a joint news conference in Johannesburg on Monday. South African national club Sheikh Mashaba detailed the kind of person he was.
Say, without any doubt, since we started with Senzo, this national team never had problems. Because he would always be a leader. He's a guide to the players, and the players would listen to him. I don't remember any player bringing forth problems. They will always go to Senzo, and they spoke to Senzo and presented their problems.
As Orlando Pirates Football Club, we are devastated. We had a session in the morning with the players where we were doing a soul searching. It was difficult for me as the chairman, to manage the situation because, it was too close to all of us, Senzo Meyiwa. And it was a lot of sobbing and crying. It was uncontrollable. I said to the players, it's only fair that he must cry because it's not easy to hold back emotions, especially on an event like this one.
I'm now being joined by Channels TV sports correspondent Austin Okonapan. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, good to be here. Sad times for South African football.
Absolutely. But what impact do you think this will have on South African sports or football?
You saw Sheikh Mashaba crying there. The players, of course, they're down at the moment. This is their captain. This is a goalkeeper that has led them through 4 qualifying games, and they're yet to concede a goal under his leadership. South Africa doing very well, look good to qualify for the 2015 African Cup of Nations. They're top of the Group A table, and now this is happening. Let's talk about South Africa as a whole. We saw the drama coming out of Oscar Pistorius. After Oscar Pistorius on Friday, a former 800-meter silver medalist was killed in an accident, and now unknown men are killing a rising star that is doing so well.
But do you think the gunmen knew who they were shooting? Or who they shot at?
We can't tell, but they should have an idea because first they know where they're going to. They're going to the house of a celebrity. His girlfriend is a well-known musician in South Africa, and of course, Meyiwa plays in the South African League, where he's also very well known. He's a captain of the Bafana Bafana. To an extent, maybe 1 or 2 persons might not know, but before they got in there, they might have gotten an idea or 2. And we know South Africa and the porous shooting that goes on there. Same thing happened with Lucky Dube, but it's just so sad because this is at a time where his career is looking so good. Sad one for Senzo Meyiwa.
How does this what does this tell about South African security?
I can't tell, but as regards sports, they're not doing so bad. At least you could see in the PSL or their league, very good. The security is on point compared to other parts of Africa. But again, it shows that probably no value for the popular sportsmen, women, and it's a big dent on South Africa sports as a whole. It means they need to start, going out to protect their own. Because, how would the players come out to play? And remember, they're yet to play Nigeria in the AFCON qualifiers. And they're even saying that if the killers are not found, that some of them say they would even have the hearts to play again for the country.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Victoria.
And still on a sad news, a second teenage girl has died of wounds she suffered in a U.S. school shooting in Washington. Now, in a school shooting which ended when a boy aged 14 fatally shot himself in the neck. Guy Seriano was targeted during a gun rampage by fellow pupil Jalen Freiberg near Seattle on Friday. The family said in her statement they were devastated by this senseless tragedy. 3 other students targeted by Freiberg, including 2 of his cousins, remain at the hospital. Now, after the break, South Korean prosecution asks for a death sentence. And now, South Korean prosecutors are asking the court to grant the death penalty for the captain of the Seoul ferry that sunk and killed 300 people. They are also asking for life in prison for 3 other crew members involved in the deadly disaster earlier this year. This call comes as the prosecution concluded their case in a trial that began in June. Many of those who died when the ferry sank were teenagers on a school trip. The disaster was blamed on a combination of illegal redesign, overloading of cargo, and inexperienced crew members steering the vessel. An 18-year-old West African woman has tested negative for Ebola after immigrating to Australia from Guinea with her family 12 days ago. That's according to the Australian state health authorities. Australia had introduced mandatory home quarantine for travellers arriving from the West African countries most affected by the Ebola outbreak. The woman, who had been in home quarantine and monitored by health authorities since her family's arrival, was taken to the hospital on Sunday after telling health workers she had developed a fever. Several people have been tested, but no case of the deadly disease have been found. The Ebola outbreak that began in March has killed nearly 5,000 people, the vast majority in West Africa.
As you would be aware, yesterday an 18-year-old woman was taken to the Royal Brisbane and Women's Hospital and put into isolation after she'd developed a fever. She had returned 12 days earlier she had arrived in Brisbane 12 days earlier from West Africa. She's had a first test performed, which was negative for the Ebola virus. She'll now remain in isolation in the Royal Brisbane and Women's Hospital to have a second test done on Wednesday. She remains well at this stage. She is afebrile, and her family, who continue in home quarantine, are also all well.
Heavy fighting broke out on Sunday between Libya's army and Islamic militants, apparently trying to retake one of their largest camps in the eastern city of Benghazi. At least 130 people have been killed in the past 10 days during street fighting in Libya's second largest city. This is part of a wider picture of the chaos gripping the major oil producer 3 years after the downfall and death of President Muammar Gaddafi. Families were seen packing up and fleeing Benghazi. A mystic tradition has been kept in relatively little-known parks in Washington for decades. Every Sunday afternoon, experts during the cold winter months, drummers have been bringing vibrant rhythms that is there for half a century. Hundreds of people surround the beat of the drums and many dance to the sound. As VOA John Shaw learned, the Sunday Drum Circle reflects a storied history of drumming in the African American communities. She takes us to the Hill in the nation's capital.
Oh, I feel a lot of power and energy up here when I come here to drum.
Shango Kwame has been drumming in the Sunday Drum Circle on and off for 20 years.
Playing here reminds me of the homeland, Africa. Everywhere in Africa, the drum celebrates and people recognize it for celebrations. It just warms me, to just come here and play every time.
More than 50 drummers, mostly African Americans, play percussion instruments of different sizes, shapes, and origins. Some are professionals, others are beginners. But altogether, the ad hoc drum circle creates unified African rhythms. The vibrant beat draws hundreds of people to listen and dance. William Taft, a senior steward of the group, says the drum circle has deep roots in the history of Washington's black residents, dating back to 1862.
This is the highest point in Washington. When the first slaves were freed in D.C., they did African ritual and culture, drumming and dancing to ancestors, all day on the first day of Emancipation Day.
But Taft says the weekly gathering started in 1965, when drummers played in the park to honor civil rights activist Malcolm X following his assassination.
Washington, D.C. at that time was known as Chocolate City, so black culture was very strong. And this park was primarily used for black cultural activities and liberation activities.
Ever since, Meridian Hill Park has been known to the community as Malcolm X Park. In the beginning, Taft says, the group was small, rather intimate, the musicians teaching each other African drumming and culture. As the neighborhoods around the park changed over the decades, the circle changed too. It embraced drummers from other ethnicities, and the crowds it drew to the park became larger and more diverse too. Rob Oden and his friends have been practicing acro-yoga here for the past 6 years.
Having the energy that the percussionist brings just really bumps it to the next level. You get that beat in the background, you're like, it's almost like drinking an energy drink.
Candace Mickens, like many African Americans, says she feels a different sort of energy in the park.
I definitely believe this is a sacred space. I come here to dance for my joys, to dance out my pains, my sorrows, my healing. I come here for all of that.
The spiritual vibration of music, sound vibration is healing. This is something we know in our culture. So that's the gift we give to everyone who comes.
Taft says the drummers hope the Sunday tradition in Meridian Hill Park continues, and they take their part in it very seriously.
That's some spiritual drumming. And with that, we wrap the world today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Victoria Ido. Have a good evening.